Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Truth, Wisdom, Freedom Conversations. I'm really excited to have here with me Nselaa Ward, who is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and she's actually a Juris Doctor, which basically is fancy for very accomplished lawyer. So thank you so much for joining me today on this episode.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so excited that I made it. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. And we are talking today about human resilience. And
Mm,
the subtitle of this podcast is called From Sex Worker to Juris Doctor and Human Rights Activist. And
mm.
this really is a powerful, inspirational story when I heard it. And I was watching you on TEDx. And of course, you've been on other television stations like TLC and CNN and C-SPAN, BET. And also, you're very active in human rights matters, things with
Yes.
LGBTQ communities, Black Lives Matter. I was just looking at photos of her standing up with her shirts at this rally. And she also helps people build a financial legacy and finding resilience, not just from a soul level, but also from a practical human level. You wear so many different hats. So, first of all, thank you so much for being here. And
Thank
I
you.
want you to maybe start by just sharing a little bit about how you got here.
Oh my goodness, that's such a long story. So, I'm a Juris Doctor. I practice law for going on a decade. I did bankruptcy, business, and criminal law. Right now, I actually have a business architect firm here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've had my business architect firm ever since about 2015. And I did that because I've always really believed that a huge part of the revolution is financial, and I was able to see that firsthand just working within the law firm, especially doing a lot of business and bankruptcy work because I had over 1,000, different cases and clients that were going through financial struggles. I was able to really see the patterns, what happened with small businesses to actually get them into bankruptcy in the long run. And I knew that I always kind of wanted to be proactive about that. But the law is really kind of a reactive industry, right? So you don't really get involved before the problem starts. You can't really do anything until they actually have a problem. And I knew that I wanted to have a resource and be a resource for people before they got into bankruptcy and before things that were going bad. So that's how I birthed my business architect firm. But my story really didn't start there. My story started many, many, many years before. I was a sex worker from the age of 12 to about 19 years old. My story started more often in crack houses and corner blocks, and then turned into this movement to make sure that other people are not experiencing similar things.
And you share a lot about how you learned a lot about leadership and diversity from those years. And that
Mhm.
really is where you got a lot of your business skills and how you
It
learn to
is.
relate with people. Can you share a little bit about that?
It absolutely is. Yes. So, my first business was actually in the sex work industry. And a lot of people don't know because everybody calls me Madam Salah, but they don't know where Madam Salah comes from. It started a lot earlier. It started in my sex worker days. I never let it go because I didn't want to forget where I came from. And it's very easy, a lot of times when you start to live a different lifestyle to forget what you've been through before. But I try to remind myself of it so that I can stay grounded. But one of the major things that really, really helped me to get to where I was is the community. I grew up around a community of rock stars. I'm talking about people that were surviving crack cocaine addiction. We call them rock stars. My mother was actually a survivor of crack cocaine addiction. And she would always say, you better not call me a crack addict. You better not call me a crackhead. We call people in that community, we call them rock stars. They really created in me this drive just to never give up. If you've ever been around any type of a crack addict before, or a rock star, they'll come and ask you, let me get $5. And you're like, no. And they're like, let me get $5. And you're like, no. They come back the next day like you never told them no twice before. And they'll ask you 10 times later until you finally say, here, take the $5. Here you go. Just go away. And I realized that if they had that resilience to keep coming, right, not being worried about the rejection and still going after what they wanted in life, then I shouldn't be. afraid to go after what I wanted in life. And I actually had to deal with that rejection quite a bit, coming up, especially dealing with attorney regulation, because I did come from a history where I already had a history. I was already in an industry that they thought was immoral. Just getting into law school in general was a whole challenge by itself, because I had to convince them to look over that. They told me no 10 times. At least 10 times, despite the fact that, I was one of the smartest people, according on paper, that was applying. I went to the School of Science and Math, which takes the top 2% from every county, and they put them in college 2 years early. I had that academic experience. People still had a hard time getting over the fact that I was in the sex work industry. And then
How did you fall into that? Was it something that was circumstantial?
I wasn't forced into it, which is why I don't identify as sex trafficking, and I wasn't taken across state lines. I've had to kind of go through my own spiritual assessment of what happened. I think a lot of it was, at the time when I was 11 years old, my mom, she got shot in a crack cocaine deal that went bad. I didn't see her all of a sudden for several weeks. And this was right around the Christmas holidays. I had two little brothers at the time. One was like not even a year old yet. And the other, I believe maybe was 4. At the time I was so young, I didn't know to be worried, because my mom, she already had at that point this history of going on these missions, right? Missions were basically when somebody that was addicted to crack cocaine, they would just go missing for several days because they were having a crack binge, right? So I was used to her like having these missions and being gone for a few days. I remember my grandparents called me on Christmas and it was like, what did you get for Christmas? And I was like, we didn't get anything. And they was like, what do you mean you didn't get anything? I was like, we didn't get anything. They was like, your mama didn't get you nothing for Christmas. And I was like, no, she's not here. She hasn't been here for a few weeks. And it was like, what? So that was a red flag to them that something was wrong. They came down from out of town to see what was going on. And they found out that she was in the hospital and that she was paralyzed. So they had to kind of take care of me from that point moving forward. Because my mom was paralyzed, she got deeper into crack cocaine in her life because she also went through a depression. Eventually she was able to recover. Even today, she still has some things that goes on with her that I think definitely are related to that time. It caused her to be more disconnected from me, just from people in general. She started to become disconnected from her life and from the people that loved her. And I think at that age, I already had, self-esteem issues just as a young Black girl growing up and having the whole world tell you that you're not good enough. You're not good enough to be loved like these other people. You're not pretty enough. You're not valuable enough. So I already grew up in an environment where people were constantly questioning Black girls' worth. I started to develop this idea in my head that I was going to create my worth. Keep in mind that also because my mom was addicted to crack, a lot of the people in our life that we all called cousins or brothers or uncles who, weren't necessarily blood related to us, but related to us because they knew my mom, they were into crack cocaine and they were dealers as well. Because I've always been like this entrepreneur, this hustler. Even though I knew I wanted to be an attorney ever since I was 8 years old, I've always had a head for entrepreneurship. And they introduced me, they was like, well, if this is what you want to do, if you really want to make money, this is how you make money. And at the time, this is how I created value for myself when the world told me that I wasn't valuable. I felt like, I can prove to you that I'm valuable. If I make people pay for me, I will prove to you that I'm valuable because you have to give me some type of monetary exchange. So I was trying to seek my value in life at a very young age. And then it just became this cycle that was a lot more difficult to be able to get out of. But I always knew that I had vision, even at that early age, of what was going to happen in the long term.
There's so much there about seeking value and the I'm not good enough story and plunging into the depths of darkness to then emerge out into your true destiny of what it is that you knew you wanted to do all along. There's so much there. And so how did you end up breaking out of this cycle? I mean, we can talk about the cycles of oppression. We can talk about inner and outer oppression, but there's for sure a theme of victimization here that you had to break out of in order to be where you are today. Because I would say that you're a rarity, right? Because most people that get stuck in that, it's like a washing machine. It just keeps spinning, right? But you took all of that, you took your wounds and you made them into gifts and into presents. And then you're giving back to people by showing them as a role model, this is what you can do with the circumstances that you've been given. So how do you take something that heavy and make it into what you've made into success?
It's been a long process, and I'm still going through a lot of the healing process. Healing is a lifelong process. So it never like, okay, I'm healed, I can move forward now. You go through a process over time because there's all sorts of little wounds that we have to work through as we progress. Some wounds we didn't even know were there. It's definitely been a progression for me. I didn't always talk about it. In fact, I didn't really tell anybody until I was forced to tell people after attorney regulations started questioning me and really coming after me about some of my history. Where I had a coach and a therapist at the time, and they were like, look, you have to talk about this story before they talk about this story. You have to get this story out. And it was really difficult for me because every aspect of life I had been through had taught me that I wasn't worthy and that I was at the bottom of the barrel because I was a sex worker, and because my mom was a rock star, and because we did grow up in poor communities. So I was so afraid that if people found out my history and who I was and what I did, that they wouldn't love me or that they wouldn't accept me. So I had to go through this transformation internally of really getting to the point of believing that everything I needed was in me. I didn't need anything from other people. Like for a long time, I felt like I needed things. I needed this validation and I needed this acceptance from the rest of the community. I needed attorney regulation to think I was a good person. I needed the law board to think that I was a good person. I needed my clients to feel I was morally correct. And I needed all these other things externally to feel like I was whole. So I really had to get to the point of understanding that I didn't need any of this. I don't need anything out here to be whole. Everything I need to be whole and complete is here, right? I really had to go through that coaching and that therapy to get to that place. Part of it that was really helpful is that when you're already at the bottom, you get to define how success and abundance and happiness looks. Nobody else can define that for you because they've already said you're not nothing. So I didn't have to worry about being at a certain level and then them being like, oh no, I can't believe you did this. They already expected the worst from me, so it was almost like freedom. Like everything I do is going to be amazing moving forward. Just being able to define that abundance for myself and the process of learning to be complete with who I was and not with anything somebody can offer me.
That's such an important lesson for everyone, really. It's the validation piece. If we can just let go of the right and the wrong, of what's expected of us, and really tune into what actually is the truth. You said earlier that you had this fear of people would not love you enough or to accept you, your family, your colleagues, your clients, if you told them this vulnerable piece of information. But was that the case?
I mean, there's always some people that are going to be haters. There's always haters out there,
right?
Just because they're dealing with their own internal struggles. And it might not be that they really hate you. It's really they see some type of reflection that they haven't accepted in themselves,
right.
So there's always people out there that are not going to be okay with you. You can be the child of God. You can be everything perfect and they're still not going to be okay with you. But I really had to get to a position where I was okay with other people not being happy with me. So there were people that said, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. And oh my God, I don't want you to work on my case. Oh my God, I don't want you to be my lawyer. There were several people like that. But what changed is that I changed. So how they affected me when they had whatever their opinion was, that changed for me because I understood that they were just showing a reflection of what was going on in them and not necessarily a reflection of what went on in me.
And I think that perspective shift is very important to adopt as someone who is like, I'm just going to walk through the fire. And and these people that are not going to follow, okay, they can stay back there. And the people that do, the people that followed you and the people that accepted you, I mean, I'm sure that also solidified your relationship with them because they were able to see past the acts or the choices as they were choices. They were temporary, but that the essence of who you are, like that's true. And those are the people that you probably cultivated deeper relationships with. We're going to leave some people behind as we evolve as human beings. That's just...
We live in a society that teaches us that our value is based on what we do in the world, that we don't have value unless we're doing something that's great and grand and that we're doing something that is approved by them. Once we get past that perspective of feeling like our value is attached to what we're doing for other people or is attached to what other people feel about us, then the whole world of abundance really opens up, because nothing that anybody can say or do can affect you at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to talk a little bit about this notion of PTSD or PTSS, as you talked about in one of your TED Talks? Because I think it's really important to understand another way of looking at oppression and how to break free of it.
There's several different aspects of PTSD or PTSS. One of the aspects that I talked about in my TED Talk, and you guys can search the TED Talk online as well if you look up leadership and diversity lessons from the bar. What happens is it's a study that was actually done by Dr. Joy DeGruy, and it talks about how we as oppressed people, we're pitched against each other. And then we often imitate what other people have done to us. So we have this idea of what success is, believing that success can only happen for one person. And that if we want to be successful, if we want to have abundance, then we have to make sure that we're the only one that reaches that and that nobody can come with us, right? It's something that the people in power, people that are in wealth, or people that are trying to stay in control due to control the masses, is they keep them focused on fighting amongst each other so that they can get to this false level of security, so that they can get to this false level of success or this false level of abundance by making sure that nobody else can get there except for them. We see it happening where it's passed down from generations to generations. By the way, I don't know if I said this earlier, but PTSD or PTSS stands for post-traumatic slave disorder or post-traumatic slave syndrome. Parents teach their children to have the same mentality and to behave the same way, and we don't even know that we're responding to PTSD or PTSS because it's been passed down so long. So we do it to others unknowingly, not realizing where it's coming from. I definitely think that once people of color start to realize what's happening to us socially and emotionally, then we can start to take our power back when we realize that if we all work together and lift each other up, then we can achieve more.
I definitely relate to everything you just said there. Being an Asian American gay person from a very traditional family who doesn't necessarily accept homosexuality, I definitely have experienced some version of PTSS because my parents were refugees. They were running away from violence, from communism, from people that their country that was trying to kill them, and they had to seek for asylum in America. And so the way in which they brought me up wasn't as nice as some other upbringings where there was a lot of pressure. It was a physically, mentally, verbally very hard relationship growing up because there was so much expectation to succeed, to make it. You're here now in America, you have to live the American dream, and we have these are the expectations you must meet for being born into this country, so that our life meant something and our escape meant something. And so that level of parenting really took a toll on my psyche growing up, and I definitely had to go through a whole healing process to learn, kind of like what you were talking about with like rejection of other people, not caring about what other people think of me, dealing with my own inner self-negative talk that was just on constant replay, and self-sabotage, right? That was a big part of my breaking through things, and also unconsciously trying to sabotage other people who were also people of color, or I went to school as an actor, so I was in theater, and we would always compare ourselves to other people, like, oh, there's another Asian actor that I keep seeing in the audition rooms. Are they going to get it? Is it going to be me? So we go into this scarcity mentality of they only want so much. The system only has room for this many Asian gay people.
Yes.
And then so we start hating on other people, and
exactly
it creates even
happens.
more oppression. It's like, what is that?
Yeah,
what is that?
That's exactly PTSD. We're all taught it because people that are in power, sometimes they want us to compete against each other so that they can stay in power. Yes, that's absolutely it. And I've seen it in my community as well, because we feel like only one Black person can come, and then you look around and see how many Black people are in the room, and then you start getting scared because you're like, oh man, there's 4 or 5 Black people here. I gotta be better than them. Like, I have to have something unique that sets me apart. It causes us to not work with each other. It causes us to not be able to lift each other. And it causes us not to be able to overcome the oppression that we're going through.
I hope you are enjoying the conversation with Nselaa Ward so far. I wanted to take a moment to pause and to make an offering to those of you who are listening. So, for mental health awareness for this month in November and also in December of 2020, I'm going to extend this till the end of this year. I'm offering free 45-minute breakthrough sessions. And what really enlivens me is helping people shift, not just on a psychological level, but on an energetic, spiritual level. And so, if you feel really drawn to dive deeper into the blocks that are keeping you from living your fullest, most realized self, then this might be for you. And I am offering this out there too because I feel strongly about breaking the cycles of what I call karma, or you can call victimization or oppression, whether it's from an inner or outer source, it doesn't matter. The cycles need to be broken on an energetic level so that we can move forward fully and wholly. That is my offering to you. And if you would like to take that up, please email me at sage@johnsonchong.com. That's SAGE at Johnson Chong. That's my name, JOHNSONCHONG.com. There's only so many spaces, of course, because there's only one of me, but that is something that I'm willing to offer till the end of this year. So please reach out. And now back to the podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you think the 3 roadblocks to self-sabotage are as we're moving towards success or our true purpose?
Because I talked about rock stars earlier, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the empowerment they gave me to really be able to say yes. That was really important to me. A lot of times in my neighborhood also, because we had a lot of rock stars, there was always somebody that we would call the meat man, right? The meat man was the person that he would be able to give you anything that you wanted in the neighborhood. Like a lot of times he always had meat on him, like all types of steaks. And that's why we called him the meat man, because he would have ribeyes or T-bone steaks. He would have everything like in his car that he just sell to you, right? We have no idea where he got it from. He happened to sell to you. But he also was the hookup to be able to get other things that you wanted. So, when he comes by and knocks on your door, he's like, I got such meat, He was like, anything else you need? And you'd be like, I need to get a bike for my kid for Christmas. And he'd be like, all right, give me 2 days. I got you. And he'll bring you a bike in 2 days. And it was so empowering to witness these people in the communities that were always willing to say yes. Somebody that's always willing to say yes, even if they don't know how they're going to get it, right? They know that they're going to find a way if there's a need. And what I really received from that is that I have to always be open to the yes. We have to always be open to our divine calling, to abundance, to whatever it is, to opportunity. And sometimes we're not, right? We have this fear that goes on in us that tells us that we can't say yes. We can't say yes because if we say yes, what happened if I can't fulfill it? What happened if people talk about me? What happened, if it's too much? We have all these things that are going on in our mind that prevents us from being able to say yes, that sabotages us in the long run. So the biggest thing that I learned that people can use to not self-sabotage is to just be willing to say yes. Even if you don't know how it's going to happen, be open.
Amazing. Do you have any spiritual mentors or any books that are really inspiring you right now that you're reading, or things that you would recommend to people that you do as part of your routine to take care of yourself, to develop, to evolve?
Yes, I do have some spiritual mentors. One of my major mentors has made a huge change in my life, and she was really, really hard on me, was Iyanla Vanzant. We go every month to really do spiritual development and to just deep dive into that connection. One of the biggest things that I learned, it's so funny because my name means connection and it means prayer and peace. But one of the biggest issues that I had was connecting to people. That was difficult for me. Just through my coaching and therapy, I had to learn where that came from. A lot of it came from, initially it came when my mother disconnected from me. And then I went through that same imitating what people do to us that hurts us. We start to imitate it in life. So I start disconnecting from other people, but also in the sex work industry, I had to disconnect just to be able to do my job. I had to learn how to keep clients at a distance so that I could do what I was supposed to do. And then I grew up creating those same patterns throughout my life, just keeping distance from people and not being able to really connect, partially because I couldn't connect to myself. When I first started working with Iyanla, she said, I noticed you got a lot of padding on. What's going on with all these padding? What are you trying to disconnect from? And I was like, padding. What are you talking about? I was like, is she talking about shoulder pads? I was confused, like what's going on? And she was talking about my weight. When you have this weight on you, it's spiritual padding that you create for yourself when you need to disconnect from something. So it really helped me to reframe even, the experience of my weight and how that's affected my life. Just going through the process of training with her and going through the ministry and working through my healing, I had to learn how to first reconnect with myself so that I could ultimately reconnect with God and then reconnect with others. There's been a couple of books that's been really helpful in that process. One is called The Sacred Yes. It's basically my Bible. Like I have to read it every day over and over and over again just to get guidance to what my next steps are. You said earlier, you were talking about how a lot of spiritual warriors out here, sometimes they're not completely grounded because anytime something happens, they'd be like, just pray on it, right? But they're not really taking action. I'm the type of person that I am an action taker. Right? If I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, I have to take an action to do it. But my first action is to get into that prayer and to get into that meditation. So I read The Sacred Yes, just to give me some vision. Like I have to meditate and just figure out what my next steps are. But I can't decide my next steps until I get spiritually in tune to myself, right? And reading The Sacred Yes really, really helps me. And the other book that I'm reading is called Your Brain at Work, is called. And what it does is it tells us basically what chemically goes on in your brain when we react to all of the different things that we do in life. When we react to racism, when we react to oppression, when we react to unfairness, when we react to bad situations at work, it tells us basically what chemical reaction. It tells through story as well, which makes it easier to read than just a regular science book. It gives you all these different scenarios in life that people are going through, and then it explains, it gives the back reaction of this is what was happening in their brain when this happened, and this is why they responded like this. And then it gives an alternate scenario. Okay, if they understood what was going on in their brain chemically, then they could have controlled that reaction. So what is done, Your Brain at Work, is it's given me the ability to name the emotions and the experiences that I'm having so that I can control that reaction afterwards. So those are the two most powerful books that I'm reading right now.
Beautiful. I have a teacher that says name it, frame it, and then claim it. Because if you can't name it, you can't put it into a category of experience that's relatable to yourself and to other people. You can't share about it, and then you can't own it. And it's really important to figure out and open up new perspectives, new ways of understanding how we work from a science level and also from a deep spiritual level. Like, what does prayer actually mean for me? What does it feel like in my body? How do I get inspired? How do I tune in? How do I connect with other people? And I think that's really powerful. And thank you so much for sharing how you do that. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about what it is that you're doing with your firm and how they can contact you or connect with you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have a business architect firm. We do a little bit of what most business architect firms do, but we take it a little step further. So we work with small to mid-sized companies, and we basically return your hustle into an enterprise. So we go in, we do an audit of your company, we find out where your weaknesses are, where your holes are, whether it's customer service, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's fulfillment, and we create your operating infrastructure, and we put systems in so that you don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel over and over again. I think my son is trying to come in here. And actually what he did is he just literally broke into the door to be able to come in here and get his phone. He knows that I'm not going to go off on him on recording right now.
That's a different podcast, Why Children Are Addicted to Phones.
He's like, you gonna let me in. So what we do is we go in and we build your infrastructure and put in systems so that your company can operate as an enterprise. So we build your system from the point that you walk into the door to the point that your employees sit down at the desk, to what they do when they turn on the computer, to how they handle your customers, to how they handle fulfillment, to the point that your customers purchase something and how do you get them to be a customer all over again, right? So we create your systems from start to beginning in every aspect. There's actually 10 pillars that we work on so that you can actually operate a company and it runs smoothly with or without you being present. You know, the difference between a hustle and an enterprise is if your company can run without you. If you can walk away for a month and it's still going to be just as profitable when you were there. So that's the first thing we do. The second thing that happens is that a lot of our clients, they're not just, lawyers. They want to be the Johnny Cochran of law, or they want to be the Susie Orman of financial advising. They want to be the go-to person in their industry. So our clients are not just people that just want the back end to run, they also want to be on the front end. So we take our clients on tour around the world, to London, we take them to Nigeria, we take them all over the United States where they're speaking on their expertise, and they become the go-to person in the industry. People get to know them as a thought leader in the industry. We teach our clients how the difference between just being an expert and being a thought leader. Everybody feels like they really want to be an expert, so we're trying to set them up not just as an expert, but as a thought leader in the industry. An expert is somebody that you'll go to and they can tell you, you do A, B, C, and you can get to D. Right? But we don't want our clients just to be experts, because experts can be replaced. As a thought leader, you make people think differently about the topic that you are working on, right? And everybody can't be a thought leader. So we take them on tour around the country. And the third thing that has actually been super popular since the coronavirus has hit is that historically, most business architect firms are just working on systems. They work on the tech aspect of things. And what has happened is that ever since coronavirus, people need to really emphasize this digital aspect of revenue more than ever. And people traditionally have not known how to do that if you had a brick and mortar business or a service related business where you actually had to touch people. We help them to create that digital stream of income as well, so that if we ever have another pandemic, or if you just don't want to have to be in an office or a shop all day, every day, you have this digital stream that's always running and working for you.
Amazing. And you can find out more on her website, which is called ninavafirm.com, and that's spelled NINA, V for victory, A, firm.com. And
that's it.
Yes. Yeah, did I say it right? I said it right? You
said it perfect. I love you. Oh my God. Like, seriously, after this, I'm going to have to come to Australia just to hang out with you.
Please do. Oh, one more thing. You are one of the world's top slam poets. And I love slam poetry. So if you just had something, I don't know, something bubbling within you that you want to express, you're welcome to. No pressure. It's just for my own little ears, my own selfish desire to listen live.
All right. So I'll give you a piece. This is called Walking on Water, right? And this is a piece that I dedicated to my son when he was a lot smaller, right? And I was going through all these trials and tribulations and experiences just growing up. And I literally, we feel like a lot of times we have to walk on water to get to where we're going. And I wanted to let him know that he's going to walk on water as well, and that's okay. So that's what this is about. He'd be 6. Knee-length jean shorts and a Spider-Man t-shirt, milk and donut powdered smiles. His locks would be shoulder length by now. And I walked 360 miles in his shoes to help him travel through the full cipher of his knowledge, to take his falls when he stumbled, the scratches of life on his knees, the hiccups and his tears, and trust me, there will be. There'll be times when he'll fall to his knees and he can't seem to stop bleeding. He'll hit the most sensitive parts of his funny bones and he won't be able to laugh. He'll twist his ankles in ways that will make him think it's broken. I can hear his gasp for air, trying to make out the words to tell his story, but the salty water keeps pushing them down. Too much of a revolutionary to call them tears, exaggerating his tears through his toothless frown, though it's not an exaggeration to him because he feels like it's broken. Mommy, please pick me up. I've fallen and I can't get up. I need you to come get me. And I'll run to him, holding out my arms, holding back my own salty water alarms. And I tell him, no, get up and walk. We have all walked on water to get here. Here is where it hurts, through aching ankles, when your arch nemesis becomes the arc of your foot felt detached from a soldier, tiptoeing through the trench landmines of a rat carrying another brother soldier on his back, but it was already broken by the bushes, who sprouted too thick to see the guns. You better run, nigga, run through wounded windpipes. Even when you can't seem to catch your breath, the tsunamis have left your lungs full of bullshit, like Katrina, through lakes of limp and lifeless bodies, left your lungs full of bullshit, like Ike, crashing through the crevices of Texas, felt just like a fist to the face. Could have sworn I heard Trump saying that anime, just eat the cake, but didn't. Texas Jesus walk on water anyway. Then there was Jesus who came walking on top of the sea. Peter called out to him and said, Lord, if it is you, commanded me to walk. And he said, go now, Peter. Step down from his boat. His friends looked on in awe, looked down at the wind and the water and became afraid of what he saw. Now, Lord, help me. Save your child. Jesus stretched his hands out to him and said, baby, why did you doubt? Look back at the water you've treaded and realize you have nothing left to fear now. We have all walked on water to get here. Here is not a poem about religion. Here is a poem about being fearless, because you don't have to be Jesus to turn water into wine. Single mothers do it all the time. We overcome obstacles with each stride when we keep walking. Sister soldiers, keep your guns up. Don't look down and just keep walking, baby boy. Just keep walking. There's a story in your step. And sometimes life will hurt and might not let you tell it yourself, but walk on water. You'll twist your ankles in ways that will make you think it's broken. The tears will run like oceans, but walk on water. Baby boy, walk your story. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I hope everybody walks their story out there.
You're such an open channel for creative expression of just all of it. You are the walking embodiment of human resilience. If you were a superhero, you'd be that colorful tiger in the background.
Ooh, I like that.
Rainbow.
Like
is that a tiger?
Look, yes, it is. It's a lion. So I think
it's a lion.
Inspired me to go ahead and get my superhero costume on. I have to get my superhero costume on in the next couple of days. Look, I might just be a lion.
A rainbow lion. There you go.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your open-hearted sharing and all of your wisdom and insight. And your journey is just incredible. And all the work that you're doing we haven't even touched on, the things you're doing in human rights activism. Thank you so much for being a lighthouse for people that need it. And thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.